in the bustling heart of Seoul, where neon lights paint the night sky in electric hues and millions of stories unfold with each passing moment, there lived a young woman named Han Yoo-jin. At 25, she worked as a graphic designer for a trendy advertising agency in Gangnam, spending her days creating beautiful campaigns and her evenings in the quiet solitude of her small apartment in Hongdae. Yoo-jin was what her friends called a realistic dreamer, someone who believed in love but had never quite found it, someone who created beautiful things for others while her own life felt beautifully ordinary. She had shoulder-length hair that she always tucked behind her right ear when she was concentrating, wore oversized sweaters even in Seoul's humid summers, and had a collection of succulents on her windowsill that she talked to every morning. But there was something extraordinary happening in Yoo-jin's ordinary life, something that would change everything she thought she knew about destiny, dreams, and the invisible threads that connect hearts across time and space. It started on a Tuesday night in early March, when the cherry blossoms were just beginning to hint at their arrival. Yoo-jin had fallen asleep while working on a particularly challenging project, her head resting on her desk next to sketches of wedding invitations. Ironic, considering she hadn't been on a proper date in over a year. In her dream, she found herself standing in a place that felt both foreign and familiar, a small bookstore tucked away in what appeared to be a quiet neighborhood. The walls were lined with books from floor to ceiling, and the air smelled of coffee, old paper, and something else, something warm and comforting that she couldn't quite identify. And there, behind the counter, was a man she had never seen before in her waking life. He was tall and lean, with gentle features and kind eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies of stories. His hair was dark and slightly tousled, as if he'd been running his hands through it while reading. He wore a simple cream-colored sweater and dark jeans, and there was something about the way he moved, deliberate but graceful, like he was aware of every gesture, that made Yoo-jin's dream heart skip a beat. When he looked up and their eyes met, he smiled. Not the polite smile of a stranger, but the warm, knowing smile of someone who had been waiting for her to arrive. "Welcome back," he said, in a voice that was like honey and starlight combined. "I've been wondering when you'd come by again." Yoo-jin wanted to respond, wanted to ask what he meant by again, but before she could speak, the dream began to fade. She woke up at her desk with a start, her cheek marked with the imprint of her pencil case, her heart racing with a strange mixture of loss and longing. The next night, Yoo-jin dreamed of him again. This time, they were walking through Namsan Park, the Seoul Tower glittering in the distance like a beacon of hope. The stranger, for that's how she had begun to think of him, was explaining something about the way light changes throughout the day, his hands gesturing animatedly as he spoke. Yoo-jin found herself completely captivated, not just by his words but by the passion in his voice, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about things he loved. "You see how the shadows shift," he was saying, pointing to the way the afternoon sun filtered through the leaves. "Most people don't notice, but light has its own language. It tells a different story every hour of the day." In the dream, Yoo-jin understood perfectly. She nodded, feeling as if she had always known this truth about light and shadows, as if his words were unlocking something deep within her own understanding of the world. When she woke up this time, she was in her own bed, but the feeling of walking beside him lingered so strongly that she could almost feel the warmth of the spring sun on her face. Night after night, the dreams continued. Sometimes they were in different locations: a cozy cafe in Insadong where he sketched while she read, a quiet temple where they sat in comfortable silence watching the sunset, a bustling market in Myeongdong where he bought her hanok, and they laughed at some joke she could never quite remember upon waking. But always, it was the same man. Yoo-jin began to look forward to sleep with an anticipation that bordered on obsession. Her days became a countdown to the moment when she could close her eyes and find herself in his presence again. She started going to bed earlier, taking longer naps, anything to increase her chances of seeing him. Her friends began to notice the change in her behavior. "You've been different lately," her best friend Minnie observed over lunch at their favorite Korean BBQ restaurant in Gangnam. You seem, I don't know, distracted. Like you're always thinking about something else. Yujin poked at her kimchi, unsure how to explain that she was in love with someone who didn't exist. I've just been having really vivid dreams lately, she said finally. Dreams? Minnie raised an eyebrow. What kind of dreams? Just dreams about someone. A man I've never met. Minnie's expression grew concerned. Yujin, you know dreams aren't real, right? You can't fall in love with someone from your imagination. But that was exactly what was happening, and Yujin knew it. With each passing night, her feelings for the dream stranger grew deeper and more complex. She found herself analyzing every detail of their interactions, memorizing the sound of his laugh, the way he tilted his head when he was thinking, the gentle way he touched her hand when they walked together. The dreams weren't just random encounters anymore. They had developed a continuity, a narrative thread that seemed to span weeks and months. In one dream, the stranger, whom she had begun calling him in her thoughts, as if he needed no other name, showed her a painting he had been working on. It was a landscape of Seoul at dawn, but painted with such emotion and depth that it looked like a love letter to the city itself. I've been working on this for months, he told her, his voice soft with vulnerability. But I could never get the feeling right, the way the city looks when you're in love with it, you know? In another dream, they were cooking together in what appeared to be his apartment, a small, cozy space filled with books, plants, and canvases. He was teaching her how to make proper Korean pancakes, his hands guiding hers as they mixed the batter. The secret, he said, standing behind her, his breath warm against her ear, is to add just a tiny bit of love to everything you cook. It changes the entire flavor. Yujin could feel the warmth of his body behind her, could smell his cologne, something clean and woodsy that reminded her of rain-soaked forests. When she turned around in his arms, about to kiss him, she always woke up. The frustration was becoming unbearable. Weeks turned into months, and Yujin's obsession with her dream stranger began to affect her waking life in ways she hadn't anticipated. She found herself walking through different neighborhoods of Seoul, subconsciously searching for the bookstore from her first dream. She visited every art supply store in the city, hoping to find someone who looked like him. She even started frequenting coffee shops and galleries, scanning faces in crowds, searching for eyes that held galaxies of stories. Her work began to suffer. The creative director at her agency, a sharp-eyed woman named Park Sun-hee, called her into her office on a rainy Thursday afternoon. "Yujin," Director Park said, gesturing for her to sit down. "I'm concerned about your recent work. Your designs have been different, more romantic, more emotional. While they're beautiful, they don't match what our clients are asking for." Yujin looked down at her portfolio, seeing for the first time how her dreams had begun to influence her professional work. Every design, every color choice, every composition seemed to be infused with the longing she felt for the man who existed only in her sleep. "I'm sorry, Director Park. I've been going through a personal situation. I'll refocus on the client briefs. Is everything all right at home? With your family?" "It's complicated," Yujin said, because how could she explain that she was homesick for a place that didn't exist, heartbroken over someone she'd never met? That night, Yujin's dream was different. Instead of the usual romantic encounters, she found herself sitting alone in the bookstore from her first dream. The shelves were still lined with books, the air still smelled of coffee and comfort, but the stranger was nowhere to be found. She waited for what felt like hours, browsing through books whose titles she couldn't quite read, checking her phone, which somehow worked in the dream world, and growing increasingly anxious. Where was he? He had never failed to appear in her dreams before. Just as she was about to give up hope, she heard his voice behind her. "I was wondering if you'd come looking for me," he said. And when she turned around, he was there. But something was different. He looked tired, worried, as if he had been searching for something too. "I've been dreaming about you too," he said, sitting down beside her on the small couch near the bookstore's window. Every night for months, I thought I was going crazy. Eugene dream heart stopped. You've been dreaming about me. Yes, and I've been trying to find you in the real world, just like you've been trying to find me. The revelation was so shocking that Eugene woke up immediately, her heart pounding with a mixture of joy and disbelief. Could it be possible? Could the stranger in her dreams be a real person who was somehow sharing the same dream space? The next morning, Eugene did something she had never done before. She opened her laptop and began researching shared dreaming, lucid dreaming, and every psychological phenomenon that might explain what was happening to her. Most of what she found was either scientific papers that dismissed such experiences as coincidence or fantasy websites that seemed too far-fetched to be believable. But buried deep in a forum about lucid dreaming, she found a post that made her hands shake. Has anyone else experienced shared dreaming with a stranger? I've been having detailed dreams about a woman I've never met for the past 4 months. She has shoulder-length hair, always wears oversized sweaters, and works as some kind of designer. In my dreams, we meet in different places around Seoul, bookstores, parks, cafes. Last night, she told me she's been dreaming about me too. I know this sounds impossible, but I'm starting to think she might be real. If anyone has experienced something similar, please reach out. The post was signed Light Chaser Seoul and had been posted just 2 hours ago. Eugene's entire world shifted on its axis. She screenshot the post, read it 17 times, and then, with trembling fingers, created her own account and replied, I think I'm the woman you're dreaming about. I work as a graphic designer. I do wear oversized sweaters. And I've been dreaming about a man who sounds exactly like you for the past 4 months. If this is real, if you're really out there, please message me. I've been looking for you everywhere. She signed it Dreamwalker YJ and hit send before she could change her mind. The response came within minutes. Eugene, is your name Eugene? In my dreams, you told me your name was Eugene and you said you lived in Hongdae. I can't believe this is real. I can't believe you're real. My name is Kim Woo-jin. I'm a photographer and part-time art teacher. I live in Yeonnam-dong. We need to meet. Can we meet today? Eugene stared at the message for a full minute, her heart racing so fast she thought she might faint. Kim Woo-jin. That was his name. And he was real. He was actually, impossibly, real. With shaking hands, she typed back, Yes, my name is Eugene. I live in Hongdae. I can't believe you're real either. Where should we meet? The bookstore, came his immediate reply. The one from your first dream. I think I know where it is. There's a small independent bookstore in Yeonnam-dong called Between the Lines. The owner is an elderly man who always wears a cardigan. Does that sound familiar? Eugene's breath caught. In her dreams, there had always been an elderly man, in the background of the bookstore, wearing a cardigan, quietly organizing books. She had never paid much attention to him, but now that Woo-jin mentioned it, she could see him clearly in her memory. Yes, she replied. That sounds exactly right. What time? Now. I know this is crazy, but I don't think I can wait any longer. I've been searching for you for months. Eugene didn't hesitate. I'm on my way. The subway ride to Yeonnam-dong was the longest 20 minutes of Eugene's life. She changed her outfit 3 times before leaving her apartment, finally settling on a cream-colored sweater and jeans, the same outfit she had worn in several of her dreams. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold onto the subway pole. What if he wasn't what she expected? What if the dreams had been more beautiful than reality could ever be? What if this was all an elaborate hoax? Or worse, what if she was finally having a complete mental breakdown? But as the train pulled into Hongik University Station, all of her doubts fell away. She had to know. She had to see if the man who had stolen her heart in dreams could be real enough to touch in the waking world. The bookstore was exactly where Woo-jin had said it would be, tucked between a small cafe and a vintage clothing shop on a quiet street lined with ginkgo trees. The sign read, Between the Lines, in both Korean and English, and through the window, Yujin could see the familiar floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and the elderly owner in his cardigan, just as she had dreamed. Yujin stood outside the bookstore for a full minute, gathering her courage. Through the window, she could see someone sitting at the small table near the back, a man with dark hair, wearing a cream-colored sweater that matched her own. He was reading a book, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept glancing toward the door. When she finally pushed open the door, the bell above it chimed softly, and he looked up. Their eyes met, and the world stopped. It was him. It was absolutely, undeniably him. The same gentle features, the same kind eyes that held galaxies of stories, the same slightly tousled hair that she had wanted to run her fingers through countless times in her dreams. He was real, and he was sitting right there, looking at her with the same mixture of wonder and disbelief that she felt. "Yujin," he said, standing up slowly, as if he was afraid she might disappear if he moved too quickly. "Wujin," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, both of them trying to process the impossible reality of the situation. Then Wujin smiled, that same warm, knowing smile from her very first dream, and Yujin felt her heart explode with joy. "You're really here," he said, taking a step toward her. "You're really real," she replied, taking a step toward him. And then they were in each other's arms, holding each other as if they were afraid the other might evaporate. Yujin buried her face in his shoulder and breathed in that familiar scent, clean and woodsy, like rain-soaked forests, and knew that she was finally, truly home. "I can't believe this is happening," Yujin whispered against his chest. "I've been looking for you everywhere," Wujin said, his voice thick with emotion. "I visited every bookstore in Seoul, every cafe, every place I thought you might be." "I did the same thing," Yujin laughed, pulling back to look at his face. "I've been walking through different neighborhoods for months, searching for you." The elderly bookstore owner, who had been watching this reunion with a knowing smile, approached them with 2 cups of coffee. "On the house," he said in accented English, his eyes twinkling. "For 2 people who have finally found each other." As they sat down at the small table, the same table where Yujin had waited for Wujin in her dream, they couldn't stop staring at each other, both of them still half convinced that this was just another, more vivid dream. "Tell me something only you would know," Yujin said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "Something from our dreams." Wujin smiled and intertwined their fingers. "You have a small scar on your left ankle from when you fell off your bike when you were 7. You told me about it when we were walking through Namsan Park, and you showed it to me when we were sitting by the fountain." Yujin's eyes filled with tears. She had never told anyone about that scar, not even her closest friends. "And you have a birthmark on your right shoulder that looks like a crescent moon. You showed it to me when we were cooking together in your apartment." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of their shared, impossible experience settling over them like a warm blanket. "How do you think it happened?" Yujin asked finally. "How were we able to share dreams?" Wujin shook his head. "I don't know. I've been researching it for weeks, but I can't find any scientific explanation. Maybe some connections are just meant to be, and when they can't happen in the normal way, the universe finds another way to make them happen." "Through dreams," Yujin said softly. "Through dreams," Wujin agreed. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the bookstore talking about everything and nothing. Wujin told her about his photography, his part-time job teaching art to children, his small apartment filled with plants and half-finished canvases. Yujin told him about her work as a graphic designer, her collection of succulents, her dreams of someday writing a novel. Everything they shared felt both new and familiar, like they were filling in the details of a story they already knew by heart. As the sun began to set, Wujin asked the question that had been on both their minds all day. "What happens now? I mean, we found each other, but what do we do with this? Whatever this is." Yujin looked at him. This man, who had been the love of her dreams for months, who was now sitting across from her in flesh and blood, and she knew the answer with absolute certainty. Now we find out if what we had in dreams can be even better in real life, she said. Woo Jin's smile was radiant. I think it already is. Their first real-world kiss happened as the golden hour light filtered through the bookstore windows, casting everything in a warm glow that reminded Woo Jin of the magical quality of her dreams. But this kiss was different from the dream kisses. Ooh, it was real, solid, full of the promise of all the tomorrows they would share. When they broke apart, both of them were laughing. That was better than any dream, Woo Jin whispered against her lips. Much better, Woo Jin agreed. Their relationship unfolded like a beautiful dream made manifest. They discovered that the compatibility they had felt in their shared dreams translated perfectly to waking life. Woo Jin's gentle nature and artistic soul complemented Woo Jin's creativity and warm heart. He taught her about photography and light, showing her how to see the world through an artist's eyes. She introduced him to the world of graphic design, and he became her favorite model for the romantic campaigns she created. They spent weekends exploring all the places they had visited in their dreams, comparing reality to their subconscious memories. The bookstore became their special place, where they would meet for coffee dates and quiet afternoons of reading together. Their friends and family were amazed by how quickly and deeply they had fallen for each other. It's like they've known each other forever, Min-ae observed to her boyfriend after meeting Woo Jin for the first time. They finish each other's sentences. They have all these inside jokes, and they just fit together perfectly. It's almost supernatural. If only she knew, Woo Jin thought with a secret smile. 3 months after their first meeting, Woo Jin surprised Woo Jin with a photography exhibition titled Dreams Made Real. The centerpiece was a series of photographs he had taken of her in all the places they had visited in their shared dreams. The bookstore, Namsan Park, the cafe in Insadong, the temple at sunset. These are the places where I fell in love with you, he told her at the opening. First in dreams, then in reality. Woo Jin was so moved that she cried right there in the gallery, not caring who saw her tears. 6 months later, Woo Jin surprised Woo Jin with a graphic novel she had created, telling the story of 2 people who found each other through dreams. She had illustrated it in the same style as her commercial work, but infused with all the emotion and magic of their extraordinary love story. This is our story, she told him as he flipped through the pages, his eyes wide with wonder. I wanted to capture it exactly as it happened, so we never forget how miraculous it was. Woo Jin pulled her into his arms, spinning her around in the middle of their favorite bookstore, where they had first met in both dreams and reality. How could I ever forget? He said, setting her down and cupping her face in his hands. You're the best dream I ever had, and the most beautiful reality I could have ever imagined. 1 year after their first meeting, on a perfect spring day, when the cherry blossoms were in full bloom throughout Seoul, Woo Jin took Woo Jin back to the bookstore where their story began. He had arranged with the elderly owner to close the shop early, and when they arrived, the space was filled with fairy lights and flowers. Woo Jin, he said, getting down on one knee in the same spot where they had first embraced in the real world. I knew I loved you before I ever met you. I loved you in dreams, and I love you even more in reality. Will you marry me? Through happy tears. Woo Jin said yes, and as he slipped the ring onto her finger, she realized that their love story was even more beautiful than any dream could have been. Their wedding, held the following autumn in a garden overlooking the Seoul skyline, was attended by friends and family who still marveled at the intensity and depth of their connection. The elderly bookstore owner served as an honorary grandfather figure, beaming with pride as he watched the couple he had witnessed find each other. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Woo Jin whispered in Woo Jin's ear, "Do you ever dream about me anymore?" Woo Jin smiled, spinning her gently under the stars. "Every night," he said. "But now, when I dream about you, I wake up and you're right there beside me. It's the best of both worlds. Sweet dreams and sweeter reality, Woojin said softly. Sweet dreams and sweeter reality, Woojin agreed. Years later, when their children would ask them how they met, Woojin and Woojin would tell them the truth, that sometimes love finds a way to connect two hearts even before they meet, that the universe has its own mysterious ways of bringing soulmates together, and that the most impossible love stories are often the most beautiful ones. And late at night, when their children were asleep and the house was quiet, Woojin and Woojin would sometimes lie in bed and talk about those magical months when they knew each other only in dreams. They would marvel at the mystery of it, at the beautiful impossibility of their connection, and at the way their love had transcended the boundaries between sleeping and waking. Do you think other people experience this? Woojin would ask, curled up against Woojin's chest. Maybe, Woojin would reply, running his fingers through her hair. Maybe there are other people out there right now, dreaming of their soulmates, waiting for the universe to bring them together. I hope so, Woojin would whisper. Everyone deserves a love like ours. And in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, surrounded by the gentle sounds of Seoul sleeping outside their window, they would drift off to sleep together, sometimes sharing the same dreams, sometimes dreaming separate dreams, but always waking up together. Because sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin in the most unexpected places. Sometimes two hearts can recognize each other across the impossible distance between dreams and reality. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person you've been looking for your entire life has been looking for you too, in the same impossible place where logic doesn't apply, and love writes its own rules. In Seoul, a city where millions of dreams unfold every night, Han Woojin and Kim Woojin proved that love doesn't always follow the conventional path. They showed that some connections are so deep, so fundamental, that they can exist in dreams, before they exist in reality. Their love story reminds us that in a world where we're all searching for our perfect match, sometimes the search begins in sleep, in the mysterious realm where souls can meet before bodies ever do. And when you find that person, whether in dreams or in waking life, you'll know them not because they're familiar, but because being with them feels like coming home. This is their story. This is proof that love will always find a way, even if that way is through the impossible landscape of shared dreams. And somewhere in Seoul tonight, there might be someone else dreaming of their soulmate, waiting for the moment when dreams become reality and reality becomes more beautiful than any dream could ever be.